Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. I'm joined today with my co-host, my homie, my dog. He's the man of the Mau Mau Hour. He is the Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles.
How are you?
Chilling, waiting for a hurricane.
That doesn't sound fun at all. It sounds like the opposite of fun. It sounds extremely uncomfortable.
It'll pass by.
It sounds like you're waiting for like the most frightening disaster. Do you like watch it on the porch and
No.
and your Meemaw makes lemonade?
No, it's actually a kind of worrying thing, but this one is not necessarily in our trajectory. I think it's going to be hitting the western portion of the state, but that still doesn't mean it's something that you should ignore.
Exactly. Speaking of not ignoring something, she is the faceless voice of reason. She is the M2 San.
Hello.
Hey-o.
Speaking of not ignoring something, I just want to thank you two for being here tonight.
You thought we were going to leave you with this woman?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fucked up. Why would you think that? You just made that up in your head?
Yeah, I was freaking out.
Your head is a frightening place.
It really is.
A frightening place of lies.
I was like, I can't hold down the fort by myself on this interview.
Like who said oh, you reached out to this woman that none of us know and you don't know. You got this.
I don't know, man.
Is it like a women's month that we don't know about and you thought we were gonna just put it on you?
I don't know. I just freaked
Is it
out.
a women's month right now?
You said you were feeling tired, and I was like, does that mean he's not gonna do the show? And then I just started freaking out.
I'm always feeling tired.
You are always feeling tired.
Yeah. What is that different from like every other day?
It's not, but I just was freaking out.
Dude, you want a hug?
Yes. I need a hug. I need a trauma blanket. I need everything.
A trauma
blanket?
Yep. The ones that EMS gives you.
EMS or your friend that does light healing?
Which
is worse? Which is worse, the EMS one or your light healing friend's trauma blanket?
I will take the crystals. I will take whatever will work.
So if I told you I could do Reiki to make you feel better, you'd be like, "Oh, that's cool. I'm good."
I've done Reiki before.
And what happened?
It is pretty cool.
Did you fix it?
I felt the difference.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm Reikiing you right now.
No.
This comment about I wanted to get in and just like get into the show, but I can't because you people want to be fucking hilarious. Look at us.
Pascal, you should read that.
Can you read the comment, Pascal?
I'm not entertaining that at all.
Well, then we won't read it then. If you don't want to read, if you want to know the comment that was left, then you have to watch the show. If you're listening, you're missing out. Oh,
thank you, Reclaim.
That was a nice comment.
That was really, really nice.
Yeah.
You thought we were just gonna make you guys do Black Girl Magic? That would have been funny if I would have left you a message like, "You got this, Black Girl Magic, blah blah blah." And just turn my phone off.
Yeah, star emoji, and then I never hear from you again.
Star emoji. You didn't want to Black Girl Magic your way through?
Oh man, that's like no. No, I didn't.
I think if you did do that, this woman would never come back to the show. Her next book would be about shiftless niggas that don't. If the whole time, girl. Yeah, we wouldn't have done that to you. That's really evil.
I appreciate it.
That's really, really evil. But this book was these theory books for me are really difficult. I can't speak for Pascal. Because you're the learned one.
They're interesting.
You love theory books. Look at you. Look at his face. Look at his Lacanian smile. Look at it.
No.
He loves this stuff. That's why I hit him up. I was like, hey, Pascal, Thursday, I think this is going to be right up your alley. I read in like 8 minutes. In her groundbreaking book, Marx's Ethical Vision, Vanessa Wills offers a profound exploration of the often overlooked ethical dimension of Karl Marx's work. While Marx is frequently reduced to economic and materialist analysis, Wills demonstrates that Marx's critique of capitalism is deeply moral, rooted in a vision of human flourishing, social justice, and the development of a fully realized human community. As she writes, Marx's vision was not simply a denunciation of capitalism's economic structures, but a call for emancipatory transformation that would allow humanity to fulfill its potential through collective self-determination and freedom. This framing gives us a fresh lens through which to understand Marx, not merely as a critic of economic systems, but as a moral philosopher concerned with the ethical implications of alienation, exploitation, and human suffering. In today's conversation, we will dive deep into Wills' analysis, discussing how Marx's ethical commitments underpin his revolutionary politics and what relevance they hold in contemporary struggles for social justice. We'll explore the intersection of ethics and politics in Marxist thought, touching on themes like alienation, labor, and human freedom, and consider how Marx's ethical vision might inform today's movements for social and economic liberation. Please welcome, coming all the way from DC, the Vanessa Wills.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and for the lovely introduction.
Thank you for making the time to talk with us.
Appreciate your presence on our show.
Toussaint, you said you wanted to ask the first question, so you go.
That's right. I did. So you sent us a copy of your book, and there was sort of an introduction to the introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it talks about you being in grad school and your activism and the war in Iraq and sort of your response to it. As I was reading it, you kind of became, as Wendy Williams would say, my friend in my head.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. I didn't see that one coming. Okay.
Yeah.
See, we would have done fine.
Yes, we would have.
Right.
Well, you know what? Since that's the way you feel about it, you know.
Right. Oh, no. But yeah, so okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed seeing sort of how the book came about, and I was very interested in that. So I kind of want to know how long has this book been in you? How did it come about? And is this the book that you wanted to read but couldn't find?
It is very much the book that I wanted to read but couldn't find. I'll start with that because that's just a yes. I was looking for this book, and so I wrote it so that now it exists. And I don't know if this is totally like, I mean, I have now, of course, read the finished book, and it's very satisfying. I'm like, this is great. You know, this is what I was hoping to do. The book came about, I mean, so yeah, how long was the book in me? I think that Well, I mean, so from the time that I started to think about this set of issues, these questions around Marxism and ethics, I think I first got interested in that in around 2003. I mean, pretty much right at the time of the U.S. invading Iraq and the time that I was getting involved in activism. So, that's a good 20 years, really, of having this question and seeking for an answer. But the question is, I mean, it's a great question because the book in its current form, the way that it is completed, I think maybe within the last 5 years was I the scholar who could produce that. So I wrote a dissertation on this topic, and which I still like, which, most people, of course, you write a dissertation and it's terrible, you put it away. I still operate out of a general theoretical framework that I developed at that point. But the book, in its finished form, does a lot of work to connect what might seem to some a fairly niche question to some broader questions about both the academy and then also just the world, the sort of state of humanity, of political life on the planet, and what kinds of things we need to do in order to survive, let alone actually thrive and flourish. And I think it's probably within the last 5 or 6 years that it took maturity to really be able to write that book.
I have a follow-up question I kind of want to add as well. When you talk about some of the things that were the impetus that kind of got you here in terms of the book, you mentioned some of the geopolitical realities that we were in during the period of time, the climate change, the changes in the geostrategic purview of American power overall, the war on terror, things of that nature. One of the things that that struck me was that you never mentioned the Bernie Sanders campaign as one of the actual that actually brought forth the interest in Marxism. And I was wondering, was that because you were not interested in the Sanders campaign, or you found it not international enough in scope to be one of the contributors to the reason for this burgeoning interest in Marxism? Because I think that if Sanders had not stated that he was a socialist, that interest might have diminished somewhat. I think that him publicly coming out as a socialist forces Marxism on the table in a way that it might not have been forced if otherwise. So I'd like you to answer that if possible in terms of what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's right. There's one reference in the book. There's a place where I talk about how attitudes towards Marxism have shifted quite a bit since the mid 2000s, when it was still mostly considered an incredibly niche and outdated way of thinking about the world. And I think you're absolutely right that the Sanders campaign was a part of that. I was not involved in the Sanders campaign. By 2004, at the time that I voted for Kerry, I knew that was the last time I was going to do that, and I never participated in any kind of democratic campaign, or so it just wasn't part of my story.
Have you been in DC this whole time too?
I've been at GW in DC since 2015.
But you weren't in the DC area when you said F the
No,
electoral system.
yeah. Sorry, when I said
F the electoral system.
I was in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the Sanders campaign just wasn't part of my story, although I absolutely agree with you that it had this this social and cultural effect of making it cool right, to think about socialism again. And of course, you see the reverberations of that with people who are involved in the campaign often continuing to do really good left-wing work. I saw in the chat somebody mentioned my Marx bust. So I just want to see if I could like show it to the camera somehow. There's Marx. It's actually a piggy bank and it says Das Kapital on the
It's actually very cool.
Thank you.
I mean, I made the thumbnail picture of you.
I noticed that and I love it. I saw that. I was like, yes.
Like, well, this woman's very serious about this.
Right.
In your book, you emphasize how central the concept of alienation is to Marx in his critique of capitalism. You write, alienation for Marx is not just an economic condition, but a profound moral injury. Could you explain how Marx links alienation to his broader ethical vision and why it's more than just an economic problem?
Alienation is it's a phenomenon, a feeling, a condition that human beings talked about for a very long time, right before Marx started to engage with this question. And when I'm talking to my undergraduates, for example, I'll point out that they are mostly all familiar with at least one classic alienation story, namely the story of Genesis in the Bible, is just an attempt to offer some explanation for why we feel lost, unclear about who we are and why we're here, what we're doing. And then the answer given there, of course, is that if you live a virtuous life, then you'll die and achieve spiritual reunion with God, and you'll be home, and you won't have this feeling of alienation anymore. And so, what's a large part of what's distinctive for Marx, is of course his argument that alienation is not a necessary and ineradicable feature of human life that we can never escape. That actually the feeling of alienation, of feeling degraded and feeling separated from the people around you and not being able to make human connections and feeling lost in your own activity, that those are actually psychological phenomena that are produced by the material and economic circumstances that we're in. And of course, the good news is that we produce those circumstances and we can produce other ones that would allow us to feel more fully realized in ourselves and in our interactions with other people. So there's one reading of Marx that says, well, in his early works, he was worried about alienation, but isn't alienation inherently this kind of psychological, spiritual concept that doesn't belong in a scientific analysis of human life? And so that reading says Marx talks about in the early work, but then later when he gets more interested in economics, he abandons it. But he doesn't seem to abandon it. He continues to speak, even when he stops using the German words that get translated into English as alienation. Mm-hmm. He continues to talk about this experience that especially working people have of performing an activity, and then the product of that activity confronts them in this hostile relationship. And that is exactly how he's describing alienation early on. And he prescribes the same remedy, namely that we reorganize our production as a society so that people have agency and ownership and a sense of confirmation and fulfillment in the products of their activity. So I think both of these strands, both this kind of like earlier psychological, spiritual strand, but of course, the economic and material solution are both there in Marx, and they're there all the way through.
Dr. Wills, what do we get wrong on the left about this concept of alienation? It feels like over the last, 8 years or so, the right has kind of monopolized this conversation on alienation, especially when it comes to young men. The manosphere, if you will, is kind of ripe with people of various ethnicities preaching about the perils of alienation, how to fix it, so to speak, through self-help. What do we get wrong, and how can we possibly use Marx as a way to talk to people that do feel alienated about alienation?
Yeah, a great question. And I think that we often are a bit skittish about talking about these sort of the emotional fallout of capitalism, the emotional fallout of modern life. I've been really happy. I've had quite a positive reception of my book, but there is a long-standing tendency especially among Marxists specifically, to think of questions of morality or questions of psychology or as sort of fluffy or sort of not what we're up to, not what we're about, and that is a mistake. And I absolutely agree that it leaves a space wide open for rival narratives about alienation. I do think, as you just noted, I do think that a good bit of the fuel for the manosphere, for incel spaces, is like a genuine lack of connection, right? And feeling that you're working and you are not achieving much and you don't have anybody who loves you and things seem to be getting worse. There seems to be fewer and fewer opportunities for human connection. I think there's a big space open to say, hey, the idea that this is, you're not wrong to feel like it would be great if you had more human connection, but that is a struggle that you share with women, right, who are in the same circumstances. The like if you're a woman in a relationship with a man, you are experiencing the same capitalist society that structures those relationships. Whether you're in a relationship, out of relationship, we're all under those same pressures. And the sort of reduction of women to tools, salves, right? That it becomes women's job to repair the psychological damage that capitalism does, and to do that on an individual level, and then typically not to receive the same kind of repair themselves is clearly reactionary and a non-starter, and also won't even solve the problem for men who feel this way. So I think there's a big opportunity to offer a rival humanistic vision of what it would be to have meaningful community and care.
Pascal, would you like to add something to that?
Do you think that part of the problem is that we on the left have failed to understand that there's a human consequence to the means of production and its interface with the workers, and we're still stuck in the theoretical discourse and have never had the ability to apply this to practical working reaction with human beings? In other words, are we still stuck in our own heads?
Yeah. I think it depends what we have in mind when we talk about the left, right? Of course, which is an extremely expansive concept. Um, I think I don't know. I think that's the answer. I think that's the answer is that I don't know. I mean, so let me say this, even if I think about the people in society who spend the most time in their heads, or at least there are few who spend more, it would be academics, right? Intellectuals, professors. But when I think of the left leaning professors I know, that people I know who are doing radical scholarship, who are writing about Marxism, who are writing about anarchism, who are writing about women's liberation and queer liberation, I don't see people who are sort of separated from the world. I see some of the most vibrant human beings who are very interested in making connections and in being involved in activism and being involved in their communities. So I can just speak from, anecdotally, I guess, from my experiences of some of the people we might think of as, here's somebody who's in their head, with the theory.
Toussaint, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I just think that it was good that that the conversation went in this direction, discussing alienation and the manosphere, because we need to talk about it more. They talk about it so much and, exploit it and twist it around for their own aims.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, we have better solutions anyway.
And Black Girl Magic isn't any of those solutions.
Black girl magic is the answer to everything. Yeah. Forget everything I just said about how women can't fix this for you. But yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think it's absolutely right that this is a one space that we see people really kind of naming this phenomenon and talking about it. And I think, for example, just sort of saying, well, that's your problem. You're lonely and alone and you can't get, that's on you. Like, that is, I mean, I'm not saying any individual person owes a better answer. Maybe you're busy that day, maybe you're depressed, but as a movement, if we are trying to show that a better world really is possible, and that a lot of the pain and suffering and distress that people really do experience under capitalism, they're not making it up. They might be packaging it and understanding it in a way that's very backward and reactionary. But lots of them are not just making it up that they're miserable and lonely, right? And so I think that is the kind of thing that falls under the purview of a movement that is claiming to have a vision of a better world.
Switching gears a little bit, one of the most powerful arguments you make is that Marx's ultimate goal is human flourishing, which he ties to the idea of collective freedom. You say, for Marx, true freedom can only be realized when individuals act in concert with the community, transcending narrow individualism. How does Marx define freedom, and how is it different from the liberal conception of individual freedom?
Yeah, thanks. So the liberal conception of freedom largely draws on a tradition of thinking about freedom as free will. And free will is understood as the capacity of this kind of spiritual substance inside of a human being to act without being determined by the external world or determined by natural and physical laws. So if we think, for example, about the notion that you might think, for example, you're not really free if it turns out that the laws of physics just determine everything that you do. What we want then is a conception of the will that is completely spontaneous and independent of of external determination. So this is the root of where much skepticism about Marx's conception of human beings comes, right? Because Marx's picture, which is a historical materialist picture, absolutely cannot accommodate the idea of some spiritual substance inside a person that is completely sealed off from the material world and the laws that determine it. So then the question is, well, does that mean that Marx is a strict determinist of the kind who thinks that there's no accounting for human freedom at all? And I argue that the answer is no, but that for Marx, when he talks about human freedom, he's talking about the ability of human beings to expand their capacities, to engage in a wide range of different kinds of activities, to have interesting and novel connections with one another, to really one of the reasons I love the word flourish, aside from it just being the correct concept, is you really get the visual, right? The sense of a blossoming of human existence. And that's what Marx is thinking about when he thinks about freedom. He's thinking about a form of human life that exists in accordance with what he takes to be the essential activity of human life, which is labor itself, which is our creative transformation of the world itself. So the things that promote freedom for Marx are the growing availability of various kinds of options from which we can choose, from which we can select, and our ability to produce new options for ourselves. That's the sort of thing that he's thinking about when he thinks about freedom in the human case, and it is related to the argument for communism, because Marx thinks that communism is an economic system that is most able to allow for that expanding range of activities and capacities and forms of human interaction. So now that's not a free will in the sense of this, again, sort of, spiritual, like, kind of substance, like that is whose the freedom of which is impeded upon by matter. It is a freedom. It is the freedom of matter. It's the freedom of us as material beings, but with greater and greater ability to order our activities rationally and in accordance with our individual desires and interests.
Pascal?
Well, yeah, one of the things that I find interesting about that is that the concept of freedom is often messed with the notion of individuality in the Western concept. And one of the things that I found interesting in the earlier part of your book, you talk about how the notion of Marx denying individuality is incorrect, in that he basically sees individuality become fulfilled through what you define as flourishing work, and that's the way to actually bring forth the fulfilled individual. Can you explain then how this fulfilled individual fits into Marx's notion of community? And is there a balance for Marx between individualism and community, or is there one or the other?
Yeah, so I think it can be described as a balance between them, or a necessary co-production of the two, a mutual shaping and bringing into being of these. So to go back actually to Toussaint's question early on, like when I first started researching, because I was going to write a dissertation, and I was myself surprised at just how prominent of a role the concept of individuality plays all throughout Marx's work. And because as we all know, it runs directly counter to a lot of received wisdom about Marx. And so I was surprised not only to see him, of course, say this is important, but you could almost reconstruct a good deal of the picture as an explanation about how it is that we're going to bring about real, full human individuality. And he sees himself as resolving a contradiction or a tension or a puzzle that emerges in liberal thought, where the individual and the collective, or the individual and society, are in a kind of constant tension. The interests of the private individual always straining against the needs of the society to maintain this multitude of individuals into something like a community, and this is seen as something that cannot be resolved, right? But it can be managed through the state. Marx is saying, well, no, it doesn't actually have to be that way. And in fact, one of the reasons it might seem that way is if we read back into the prehistory of human beings, and if we read back into the prehistory of human beings and try to make essential, fixed, and necessary the sort of capitalist understanding of the individual, and what it is to be a rational individual, mainly to pursue your own self-interest above all else, and for that to bring you necessarily into conflict with the people around you, which, as I said, then needs to be managed through the state. And Marx argues that actually community and the way that social development allows for new possibilities is precisely what makes individuality really possible. Part of what it is to be an individual, we usually think, is to be a little different, from others, and to be able to distinguish and disambiguate ourselves in some way, and to be able to engage in the activities that most reflect our personal talents, interests, desires, and so on, right? And that requires stuff. It requires stuff. It requires a certain level of as I said, social complexity, right? That's growing over time, growing through generations. And the thing I'll add to this as well is that there are debates among Marx's interpreters about his what's called his methodological holism, which is he's thinking about systems, right? Mm-hmm. And it's sometimes objected, well, how can Marx say the whole working class will do this? Or how can Marx say the whole capitalist class will do this? And I think sometimes his scientific explanations of how groups of people interact with other groups, depending on their economic location and how it is that they're relating to capitalist production, I think sometimes his scientific explanations of that are somehow mistaken for an endorsement of it. Marx thinks it's terrible that people are in fact largely limited in their ability to act independently, to act as full individuals. This is not a good thing. This is also happily not a necessary thing. It can be done away with, and we can produce what Marx calls at various times rich individuals or social individuals. Marx argues for communism precisely on the basis that he thinks it can unleash a flourishing of human individuality that capitalism stultifies and does not, insofar as it limits our creativity and ability to shape our lives.
Pascal, do you want to add anything?
No, continue.
She's on a roll. You're enjoying her spitting, as the young people say.
It's bars, straight bars.
Bars. Are you a hip hop fan, Dr. Wills?
I like hip hop, but I am fairly ignorant about like the history of hip hop.
I mean, I didn't ask you if you knew. Were you there like with Grandmaster Flash had his first scratch off?
But the thing is, you're asking a nerd that question. So usually, if I am into something, it's like, and now I can tell you everything about it.
Oh, okay. So you're a big Devo, are you a big Devo fan then?
Mhm.
I listen to what one of my friends calls sad white people music. So I listen to singer-songwriter and folk music.
Oh, wow.
I also really enjoy opera.
I think Cat Williams has something to say to you.
You having an unnatural allegiance to losers does not like you.
No. Can't also be spitting sometimes, but yeah, I love opera.
You Tracy Chapman?
There's actually some really interesting. I'll tell you what. There's some really interesting operas like Champion, which is about, I'm forgetting the name of the character, but it's about a boxer who was a black boxer.
Jack Johnson.
Well, maybe, I don't know, but it's about a black boxer who was active in the, I want to say the 1940s, and he was bisexual. And he was taunted by one of his rivals, one of his competitors, and in the ring, the referee also didn't call the fight kind of early enough, and the boxer who this opera is about ends up actually dealing a killing blow to his competitor. And Terence Blanchard wrote this incredible opera. There's really exciting things happening in opera, but
Well, Vanessa, you sound like a good time.
Come to an opera with me next time you're in DC. We'll go.
Hey, you want to come to this emo opera with me? It's about this gay black guy.
It's about this sad black man that, yeah, right.
Sure, it's like Moonlight, but way sadder.
You know what? It is kind of like Moonlight, but sad. That's actually
like, did you think Moonlight was a feel good movie? Because I did.
It's Moonlight the musical.
The musical Moonlight the musical. Oh, God. Tucson, if you thought black people were mad at us about the Angela Rye thing, we start doing Moonlight the musical. Oh my God.
Right. See, the people in the chat know opera is in fact wonderful.
I just want to know if after you go to your emo opera, are you like dancing around the street like Gene Kelly and Singing in the Rain? Are you?
I mean, do you really want to know? I can talk. Listen, this is a Pandora's box because I could talk endlessly about opera.
No, I'm asking about how you act after. Like,
how I act afterwards. I'm thrilled. I mean, it depends, but usually I love. So there's many things I love about opera. One is that it's long. And so I like the opera. That is not what she said. She was talking about Moonlight the musical. And I love the opportunity to just kind of like disappear for a little while and be moved by the beauty. I mean, like opera singers are, first of all, performing this athletic feat. So you're just observing human excellence at the highest levels. The stories are moving. I mean, sometimes they're quite cheesy and schematic, but even when they are, the emotions are so overwhelming. I love it. I love just being transported away. And so even if I see a sad opera, I'm lifted. Yeah, when I leave, I feel amazing.
What is the condiment of choice at an opera? Do people eat popcorn? I mean, like, what's
You don't eat anything, Pascal. How dare you?
Oh no! People be eating. Oh no, there's food. Like so my life hack when I go to the opera is,
are you sneaking in food in the opera?
I'm not sneaking in food.
Because if you're sneaking in food in the opera,
people are talking about vote sack. Man, this is your viewers. They know what's up because somebody just went. They're like, and what about vote sack? And I'm like, yeah, what about it? You know, and one of my favorite opera singers, the baritone Peter Mattei, does an incredible vote sack. Anyway, I'm like they got it together, you know. But you walk up to the concession counter, and you pre-order your champagne for intermission.
Oh,
I actually did know that. You know why? Because that's what I did. I actually worked for
you were okay, yeah.
a food and beverage company that did all the big venues in the Bay Area and where I'm from in the San Francisco Bay Area. And of course we had the opera.
Yeah. It's you go and then you swan out at intermission and you just pick up your champers. The Met has a really good salmon sandwich. If you're ever, it's incredibly expensive. It's like $24 or something, but and
that's why
one of the best sandwiches. It's one of the best sandwiches anywhere. So
that's why
that's my recommendation.
Check your purse because there's going to be a bunch of
milk duds and raisinettes.
I was just trying to think of candies. I was like doobies, like
ribs.
I made pot roast last night. This shit ain't going to waste.
Right, yeah, right. Bring it in. I mean, the intermissions are like 30 minutes long. You could have some ribs if you want.
Now, this might sound like a proletarian question, but isn't there a language barrier with a lot of opera and that it's written in non-English? I mean, it's written, a lot of it is in Italian or in Latin or.
That's right, but they usually have some sort of titles available. So most opera houses will have super titles above the stage in the local language, and some, like the Met, actually has a system where the titles are on the chair back in front of you, and there's I think at least 12 different languages that you can choose from. So language is actually usually not too much of a barrier. And even if they were singing in English, usually a lot of times you would need subtitles anyway, even when it's in English, because it's a very stylized kind of performance.
Well, as we're coming up on the hour, I don't want to keep you because I know it's late where you are. And sorry for people watching that this conversation took a bit of a left turn to
Although folks seem like, I'm looking at these comments, people are willing to ride this train.
The opera is kind of interesting. I'm not gonna lie.
I didn't see it coming.
I didn't.
I'm totally full of stereotypes. So.
Yeah, of course.
It's just
Black guy from the Bay who plays heavy metal. Of course, total stereotype.
science is filled with stereotypes.
Replete.
See, look at her. Look at her replete. Jesus.
Repeat.
Just get one highfalutin Negro on here. And all of a sudden-
Yeah, you're damn right.
Are you from Pittsburgh?
No, I'm from Philly.
From Philly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you say water for us?
Talk about a proletarian capital.
I just earlier this morning was asked to pronounce the name of the Philadelphia River that is not the Delaware. The river that is spelled Schuyylkill, and that is the Schuylkill. And the Schuylkill, being a river, is of course full of water. You know, it's funny because I mean, a lot of Philadelphians, like, apparently, like, you know, not everybody has the sort of classic Philly accent, but there are certain words apparently that every Philadelphian says with an accent, and of course, water is one of them.
Yeah. John one of them.
John.
So John is interesting, right? When I was growing up, John, when you were from North Philly, it was only a part of Philly that people said John. Like, it was not like all over the city, and you definitely didn't hear white people saying it. And now it's become this brand, and a lot of that actually sort of spearheaded by newcomers to the city. So I'm always like, wait a second, I never felt like I was from the correct part of the city to claim this as like part of my lexicon. And you are a white person from Wisconsin, and you're just John. It's very weird to me. But anyway, those are my thoughts about this. Is the first time I've been given a venue to publicly air my grievances about the career of the word John, and so thank you.
Daniel Tutt didn't tell you shit about this show, did he? He just like, I have some black friends. You're black. Why don't you guys be He did like that nice white man thing people do.
No, he's just like, here's some people you should talk to. Like, period.
He gave you a little wink. Yeah,
you'll find things to talk about.
And then he just walked away like this.
So I guess you don't watch like Abbott Elementary, right? Isn't that shot in Philly?
That's shot in Philly. Yeah,
it's not shot. Well, they have. Like,
oh, sorry, it's
like
not shot in Philly. Yeah, but it's set
in Philly.
Yeah, it's set in Philly.
Is that where that girl is from? The comedian that kind of got the show?
Shoot, why am I blanking on her name?
She started
Quinta, right?
Quinta something.
Her little internet stuff I thought was hilarious.
She started on
I loved her ever since BuzzFeed. She is hilarious. John the Opera, written by Vanessa Wills. Okay, I have a new career as a librettist. I need a composer, and then we're good.
I did want to end on a bit of a serious note. I didn't know we were going to take this hard left turn to the Creed films. So in the conclusion of your book, you discuss Marx's vision of a utopian future, not a fixed endpoint, but as a continual process of ethical and social development. You write, Marx's ethical vision is fundamentally dynamic, emphasizing praxis and the ongoing creation of a just and humane world. How does this conception of utopia as praxis challenge the traditional notions of utopian thinking, and what are its implications for revolutionary movements today?
So it's interesting. Do I say just? I'm not sure I do, because there's also this question about how to understand justice, right? And justice, Marx thinks of as a concept that is not particularly amenable to communist restoration. There's those lines in the Critique of the Gotha program, one of his writings, where he says that the capitalist system and wage labor, work for pay, is just because those are the standards of the capitalist system. And I won't go into all the detail, but he essentially thinks that the whole notion of justice already encapsulates and suggests a social and political context where you have to stake a private claim, and justice is getting what's owed you, right? And so the notion that you are in this position of having to make a claim to get what you deserve is something that he thinks will be overcome in a world where production is organized so that it has as one of its results a distribution of goods that allows people to enjoy them and to have what they need and to flourish. But yeah, I think this point about process and development and ongoing dynamism, it is key, it is crucial. You can't understand the first thing about Marx without thinking about him as a dynamic and historical thinker. And this is also why I start the book by defending dialectics. This notion that there is change and development that is brought about in part through contradictions and conflict. In a communist society, the class conflicts that Marx talks about would, of course, no longer exist. And so then some readers of Marx wonder, well, is he saying that's the end of history? Is he saying that we then reach this point of stasis? And Marx thinks the opposite. He thinks that what we're living in now is a kind of prehistory of human beings, because we have not fully unleashed our human potential for creation. And so what he hopes for and what he expects and anticipates is that a different world, a world where people are working collectively and democratically to make decisions about their own lives and about the good of humanity, is also a world in which we would see an explosion of development, change, novel forms of human creativity and artistic production, and knowledge of the world, right? He also thinks the possibility for more truly objective and scientific understanding of the world that we live in and ourselves will become possible then. So I think this is so important to keep in mind, that Marx is after a sense of ongoing growth, development, change, and is thinking about how to create the conditions that allow for more of that.
Pascal?
No, I'm good.
Tucson?
That was awesome.
And wherever you guys are watching or listening to the show, there's links in the description to Vanessa Wills, Dr. Vanessa Wills' book. Mm-hmm. It's the first line in the description. Again, tell everybody everything, because they're going to say in the comments.
It's pretty. Can we talk about that?
Did you design the cover? Did you have input?
Yeah, I had help. I was trying to figure out what the cover should be, and I was getting these emails from the press who's like, girl, like, what do you want us to put on this cover? We can come up with something. And I'm like, no. I'll have an idea. And I spoke to a friend about this problem, and I said I wanted something that had a kind of visual connotation, but was not too ocular. And she said immediately, why not a camera obscura? So a camera obscura is an early form of a camera. It's like a pinhole camera, like what people might have made when they were kids. And Marx uses the metaphor of a camera obscura to describe how ideology can reflect the world, but in a distorted manner. And then we have to do theory in order to determine what is the actual relationship between ideology and the world that it is an ideological reflection of. And so she said, well, why not a camera obscura? And I'm like, I had been tearing my hair for years. I never had any sense of like what the cover should look like. And so it's a camera obscura. It's a 19th century drawing of people inside. So a camera obscura can be a whole building. And so that's what this is. It's from a 19th century French text about optics. There's a technical manual basically about optics. And then the design folks at Oxford University Press added some color, a little razzle dazzle. And I was like, yay, because I worked so hard on my book. I want it to be pretty.
And you thought to yourself, one day.
It's on Oxford University Press. That's a big deal.
I was so honored to that they wanted to publish my book. I've made plenty jokes about it. I'm like, and now my book is a commodity for sale. Like, get it on Amazon. But it just means so much to me. I think I really am proud of the book. I think it's an important book. I really love it, and I feel good about inviting people to read it and to be in conversation with me about it. And so to be able to work with a press that I think has really done a nice job creating, putting the book into a beautiful physical form and getting it out there makes me very, very pleased.
To be a left scholar and not have to depend on Verso or on any of these other
those folks are doing good work too. Yeah, but yeah.
You might get hey, listen, I'm just telling you, you might get a little hate. Because it's like, oh, she's at Oxford. Who does she think she is?
So far people have been really nice to me. So hopefully that continues.
That fake niceness.
I'm like haters to the left. I don't know, or no, not to the left, because that's where I am. Haters, well, they know where they can go. So,
which way do you swipe for no? Swipe left. There you go. Haters to the left. Maybe you're right.
No, I don't listen. I think you'll be fine. I don't wish that on you. I'm just saying, it's just like,
of course not.
Pascal's like, as a professional hater myself, I might hate a little bit.
Interviewed by Jacobin. Got some friends over there.
But you might want to have someone from Versa review the book. I mean, that might be interesting.
I would love for. I haven't seen any reviews yet, so part of me is like, oh no, like because the haters will come. Like the haters will come. It's so we'll. I don't know. We'll see. I hope it gets a good reception. Of course.
I hope you get suggestions for like a nomination for an honor. That would be awesome.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. That would be fantastic. And as for lots of reasons, like it's always nice to be honored, but also it helps get things in front of more people, right? It helps draw more attention so that people
going to be at the
know
airport,
that this exists. Yeah,
that's where I buy all my books, at the airport. If your book's not at the airport, you're just not.
Right. If you're not at the airport.
If you're not at the airport, are you even a real fucking writer? Yeah.
Right. No, probably not. Yeah.
If it's at the airport, it's like, oh shit, Vanessa Wills is at the airport. I'd buy it just to walk around like I know her. I know her. Vanessa and I like this.
Yeah, I'm biased. I can't. You're my friend in my head. I can't write a review.
But let me also tell you why I'm happy that the book, because the book ended up being more personal than I thought it would be. I mean, it's a book about this concept in Marx, and as it developed, it became more personal, and I think there is a lot of myself in the book, and I actually have said to people that that if you read the book and you feel like you know a little bit about who I am, you're probably right. Like, from the book is me. Like, it is the things that I have cared most about, thought most about, and found most important to say for a very long time. So hearing that reflected back, like, something about this book made me feel like, oh, I know you, like, you probably do. You probably do. Yeah.
Well, Vanessa, again, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Hang out.
This was lovely. Thank you.
Because we appreciate you and want you to keep tenure, we're not going to have you come with us to the champagne room, where we just unless you want to come, you can. I'm just letting you know. It's just we just talk reckless. We talk real reckless, very reckless. Like caution to the wind. Fuck them people.
Oh Lord!
Fuck them new niggas over there.
That's amazing. And hell with them. And,
yeah. Oh yeah. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of your mama ain't shit. It's a lot of that. And I don't know if you want that in your life. I mean, if you don't mind.
Well, let me come. I can't stay up late, but let me see what's going on. I too enjoy champagne and talking smack.
If you are a patron of the show or a paid YouTube subscriber, you already have the link to the champagne room. Give us a couple minutes and we'll be there. We have to send Vanessa the link. So Vanessa, go ahead and exit out of here and we'll email you the link to the champagne room. On behalf of my homie, my dog, the man of the Mau Mau Hour, Pascal Robert, the faceless voice of reason, M. Toussaint, and our wonderfully intelligent Dr. Wills. I said your name right this time, and I told you I would correct it, and I did. Thank you so much, and we are
Ouch.